Hello, everyone from sunny Moscow. Today is 7th of July. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful. And if so, dear friends, please like the stream and leave some commentary in the chat and also in the comment section after stream will and share your opinion on the program and the topics that I will discuss. Before I start new segment, let me once again thank everyone for support during the yesterday's for attention and support during the yesterday's fundraising stream. Stream was successful, dear friends. I was very nervous. I did not know what to expect. It was the first time I was doing this fundraising stream, and well, thanks to you, dear community, stream was successful. It lasted little longer than 3 hours, while me and many other members of community were probably expecting that stream will last 5, 6, 7 hours until we will reach that goal of fundraising $200. And well, we did it in 3 hours time. So many thanks to everyone, dear friends. Obviously, due to that success, this week I will be significantly less stressed. And when it comes to these fundraising streams, dear friends, I did explain it a few times before, but maybe it will be good to explain once again. I may not do fundraising streams every Sunday. If during the week donations are, there are quite a number of donations and I can carry on working as usual, then I see no reason why would I do fundraising stream. But if there is just few donations or maybe nothing at all, then I will just have no option but to do these fundraising streams on Sundays. Let's see how it goes, dear friends. As I said, I'm going to be open and direct about situation around this project, and we'll go from there. Once again, many thanks to everyone who supported. Truly grateful for assistance. And dear friends, let me thank, yesterday I thanked everyone during the stream for donations. And when I end the stream, exactly at that point, there was a super chat on Rumble from Banzo Binzer, from moderator. And let me thank him now during this stream. Thank you very much, Banzo. Truly grateful for your help and assistance. That's been said, dear friends, let's continue now with the news segment. And first of all, let me give you news about work of Russian air defense systems overnight. RIA Novosti is reporting, based on Russian Defense Ministry, that 91 drones were intercepted by air defense systems on duty. I can give you some specifics. 20 drones were destroyed in the Belgorod region, 14 in the Kursk, 9 in Lipetsk, in the Bryansk, Voronezh, and the Moscow regions, 8 drones each. Over the Black Sea, 7 drones in Novgorod, Tver, Tambov, and the Leningrad regions, 3 drones in each direction. In Orlov's Oryol region, 2 drones. In Vladimir, Krasnodar, Krai, and the Crimea, 1 drone each. Relatively large-scale attempt of Kiev regime and its NATO backers to strike deep into Russian territory. And as usually it is the case, Russian air defense systems intercepted vast majority of the incoming aerial targets. Also, dear friends, let me share with you this news that I already published on my Patreon and Twitter X page, that according to a number of sources, Russian armed forces have liberated the settlement of Sobolyevka on the western edge of Kupyansk, Kharkov direction. And this is clearly breakthrough in Kupyansk area, because if we take a look at the map, if we zoom in, you can see, dear friends, how important this progress is, because this is Kupyansk. city itself. And well, this is their Sobolyevka settlement on the western outskirts of their city. And well, one may argue that Kupyansk is already in operational encirclement, because take a look at the map, dear friends. From northern, eastern, northern, and northern western sides, city is basically encircled by Russian forces. Significant progress of the Russian military in Kupyansk direction, and I guess it's only a matter of days at this point, and battles inside their city to liberate this town from Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky will begin. Most likely before end of this week, Russian troops will be in control of number of districts even in Kupyansk. And also, let me give you an update on South Donetsk direction. Russian armed forces liberated settlement of Podubnaya, a relatively large settlement, by the way, if you take in account entire area of the village with the industrial zone. And this village is the last one before the Dnipropetrovsk region in this direction too. And overall, dear friends, I mean, this red line is a border with Dnipropetrovsk region, and clearly on southern sector, southern flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd, and on South Donetsk sector in general, clearly Russian troops are basically almost, completely liberate the territories until the Dnipropetrovsk region. And as you know, dear friends, Russian forces already are conducting operations inside the Dnipropetrovsk region too for at least last 2 weeks, and already significant areas being liberated, including settlement Dachnaye is the name, I believe. That's being said, let's continue with some more news. And Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that it has become known about the encirclement of the Ukrainian armed forces in Kupyansk area. Russian militaries has isolated a large Ukrainian group, depriving their enemy of supplies in the Kupyansk area, and established control over the Sobolyevka. I already reported about this progress in direction of Sobolyevka. And if we take a look at the map, I guess Kiev regime's forces that are encircled in Kupyansk area are located in most northern western parts of on the outskirts of their city, in this part here. And yet again, I mean, what they're gonna do? Either they're gonna contact Russian troops and surrender while they have a chance, or otherwise they're gonna, if they will manage, they will retreat in Kupyansk and will be encircled inside the town itself. And then to arrange safe surrender once Russian troops will begin operations inside the city will be much more difficult. So I expect, or I hope, let's say that these units of the Kiev regime that are encircled will make right decision, contact Russian troops, and will lay down arms and surrender. Especially if these units are built based on this forcefully mobilized people. They never wanted to be on line of contact anyways, right? So while they have opportunity, better to surrender. Why should they lose their lives for geopolitical agenda of the globalists or their proxy regime in Kiev? It does make no sense whatsoever, right? Also, TASS news agency is reporting that Kiev lost about 4,000 military personnel and mercenaries in battles near LPR during the last week. I reported earlier, dear friends, that Russian troops established full control over every settlement in LPR, and only areas where Kiev regime still might has its presence is this forestry, by the way, Serebryanka forestry, massive forest, as you can see on your screen, dear friends. And obviously, it's going to be relatively easy for DRGs of Kiev regime and NATO mercenary groups to infiltrate this forestry. But in general, LPR is under full Russian control now, completely liberated. And Morocco military expert reported that on the borders with their LPR and also in the Seribianka forestry, as a result of clashes, Kiev regime and NATO mercenaries lose 4,000 military personnel killed and wounded, which is quite a number, isn't it? Just for a week of fighting. Initiative obviously is in Russian hands, and as I said many times before, in no circumstances Kiev regime or its NATO backers will be able to regain initiative, by the way, on any of their directions. It's just not happening. Also, we have TASS news agency's report that Ukrainian armed forces have redeployed their storm attacking aircraft from all directions to Sumy, attacking units, by the way. This is a wrong translation. Basically, storm formations from all over the front line have been redeployed towards the Sumy direction to slow down, in attempts to slow down Russian offensive operation in this area. As you know, dear friends, Russian troops quite successfully began creating a buffer zone in the Sumy region. Quite a number of settlements already being liberated, and Russian troops are right up front of this another massive forestry right now. And due to significant redeployment of Kiev regime's forces and NATO mercenaries in this direction, it is understandable that this process of creating a buffer zone is become a bit slow, because why would the Russian armed forces rush the developments, isn't it? They will take time and conduct operations in a manner that will save, first of all, lives and the health of the Russian militaries and then military equipment. But one of the reasons why Kiev regime was able to sort of stabilize the situation in this area on the northern part of Sumy region is that they are redeploying their reserves, elite formations. Some of them already were destroyed, by the way, in Yunakovka area, for example. And also whatever battle-capable storm formations they have on the line of contact being thrown into battle in a Sumy area. I guess it will take, I don't know, a week or two. Russian troops will grind down these additional enemy forces and then progress in terms of creating this buffer zone and liberating Sumy region, basically, from Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky will continue. Unfortunately, translations, by the way, not always work properly. But nevertheless, I mean, okay, translation, this mechanical translation made a statement. It said, now it says aircrafts. And you know what, by chance, this mistake is also can be said that is correct, because according to reports, Kiev regime forced to use its aircraft, whatever they have left, in a Sumy direction also. And as a result of it, there is a significant increase in a risk that Russian troops, Russian fighter jets, Russian air defense systems will take down this enemy aircraft. And I guess exactly that what happened with the F-16 last week. According to Kiev regime, F-16 crashed, but in my personal opinion, most likely it was shut down by Russian forces. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that foreign mercenaries were destroyed, neutralized in Dnipropetrovsk region. The command post of the 31st Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces was destroyed by Russian airstrike with FAB bombs, FAB glide bombs, in a village of Yanvarskaya in Dnipropetrovsk region. And among the neutralized enemy personnel, there was also foreign mercenaries, according to Russian security services that shared information with the TASS news agency. No specific in which language these foreign mercenaries were talking. Were there Europeans, let's say NATO, either special op units or maybe they were truly mercenaries, because whenever we are receiving information about mercenaries being neutralized, there was always this confusion. Were there military personnel of NATO countries, or were they mercenaries, really? Because both are operating on Kiev-controlled territory, isn't it? And there are many instances and many reports when French Foreign Legion members were, for example, neutralized, when British SAS units, special forces, were neutralized, right? And according to some military experts, by the way, very significant number of, very high number of Polish military personnel was also killed during the battles, over 2,000. So NATO is suffering significant losses, by the way, in this conflict. Once this proxy war that West is waging against Russia will end, I guess public will receive information, more or less precise information, how many exactly military personnel NATO countries lost during this proxy war, but it's going to be in thousands for sure. It's going to be in thousands. Also, dear friends, all morning reports are coming in about Russian long-range strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime in many directions. For example, DD Geopolitics just a couple of minutes ago reported about explosions in Zaporozhye, and also earlier there was reports about strikes, 6 strikes, to be more precise, in the Kharkov region. Also reports are about coming about explosions in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and that's a direction. And last night, Russian troops were also conducting long-range precise strikes, including in direction of Kiev and the Kiev region. So this long-range fight also continues. And also from the Geopolitics, by the way, Telegram channel, I want to give you this news that the Vinnytsia recruitment center of the Western-backed terrorist regime announced that it is suspending its operations at this at its main address due to tense situation in the country and to ensure the safety and well-being of citizens. These criminals, by the way, how dare they are talking about safety of the citizens, but while they are kidnapping those citizens from the streets, by the way, and throwing into trenches. And I can give you explanation why they are shutting down their main offices. Vinnytsia might be one of the first that publicly stated this, but many others will follow, because recently, by the way, in last several weeks, clearly there is a new tactic that was adopted by Russian armed forces when it comes to long-range strikes. And quite a number of times, these so-called recruitment centers of the Kiev regime were targeted, and significant number of those criminals of Kiev regime that are kidnapping people on the streets were destroyed. And according to even Ukrainian sources, by the way, people, whenever there is a strikes on these recruitment offices, people are celebrating on Kiev-controlled territory. They are happy about it. So that's how much they hate these criminals, so-called recruitment officers that are literally kidnapping people from the streets, right? So interesting development. Obviously, this tactic is clearly working, and it will help many residents of this former Soviet Republic to basically save their lives, because in many cases these recruitment so-called officers will begin to afraid for their lives, right? And probably they will decrease their activity. We will find out. And when it comes to this forceful mobilization on Kiev-controlled territory and all the criminal actions in connection with that regime is conducting there, we have this report from Ukrainian MP Zhelezniak, and I shared this information yesterday during the fundraising stream too, that Verkhovnaya Rada, which is a parliament in Kiev-controlled territory, will extend the martial law and general mobilization in Ukraine for the 16th time. According to this MP Zhelezniak, extension will be in effect for 90 days from August 7th to November 5th. And there is additional reports, by the way, and even further, Kiev regime plans to prolong this martial law even further than that, and probably they will, because whenever there was a talks or reports in the media that White House is asking or demanding from Zelensky to end martial law and to conduct elections in areas of Ukraine that are far away from a conflict zone and they easily can deal with elections. I was always skeptical that Kiev regime will listen, because they are working now no longer for White House. They were listening to White House when globalists had their assets in White House, Biden administration, for example. But now, Kiev regime, Zelensky, his associates are listening to London, first of all, right? And there are globalists and globalist-controlled regimes in Europe, under leadership of very same London, will never authorize Zelensky to end the martial law and to conduct elections, at least not anytime soon, right? That was my take on the situation, and I guess I was correct in my reading of the big picture, because, well, that's the reports that we are receiving, that Kiev regime will prolong martial law once again and this forceful mobilization. And on the matter of mobilization, by the way, former aide of Zelensky, Alexei Arestovich, stated that Ukraine is preparing for female conscription too by September. So there is no plans in Kiev to end the martial law and conduct elections. Or they want to further intensify forceful mobilization, and they are considering not just to begin mobilizing younger generation, people from 18 up to 25, but also females. And Arestovich is talking about it, and he was an aide of Zelensky, by the way. He was a prominent figure in Ukrainian so-called politics, and I guess he has quite significant sources on Kiev-controlled territory, quite informed sources. So Ukraine may officially begin mobilizing women as early as September, according to former Zelensky advisor Alexei Arestovich. We have a quote from him: "There is already a full-blown campaign underway to promote military service for women. Posters are everywhere. The Armed Forces Strategic Communications Unit is pushing out messaging about the great woman look, uniformed or not, Arestovich noted. He predicts that the issue of female conscription will be raised this autumn. These campaigns usually run for 2 to 3 months. That means by September, we are likely to see the mobilization of women being discussed seriously." Arestovich emphasized that the move is inevitable. It comes down to numbers, and when you are up against a large force, you can't cheat their math. They're clear not to Russia's overwhelming manpower advantage. Arestovich said, so yet again, towards the autumn, we might see not just a forceful mobilization of females on Kiev-controlled territory, but also young men from 18 to 25. As many NATO member states are demanding, by the way, from Kiev regime, and probably that will happen. It would not help, obviously, globalists and the proxy regime in Kiev, and in no circumstances globalists will be able to regain initiative or achieve their dream goal to defeat Russia. But they're gonna, as I said many times before, by the way, globalists will go ahead with this proxy war as long as there is anybody left on Kiev-controlled territory that can be mobilized, or until they will lose control over the Kiev. So therefore, Russia don't really has much option. Special military operation has to continue, and not just new Russian regions, but people have to be liberated from this Western-backed terrorist regime on Ukrainian territory too, let's say. In Kharkov region, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikolaev region, Odessa region. These regions, by the way, are historical Russia, and they will join Russia one way or another. I have no doubts about it, right? Some other regions too, but I think Kiev has to be liberated also. And it's only western parts of Ukraine, by the way, that can be left to NATO, because those territories, historically speaking, I mean, whenever I shared my take on the situation, I see in the comment sections when some members of community are opposing me that, you know what, why wouldn't Russia take Western Ukraine too under control? Because otherwise NATO will bring in its troops. Dear friends, Western parts of Ukraine were near, historically speaking, were parts of its neighboring states, right? Some 70% of Western Ukraine, by the way, used to be Poland. And Stalin took these territories from Poland, right? And as a compensation, Poland received territories from Germany. Also, by the way, Transcarpathia region, this mountain area here, used to be part of Czechoslovakia. But before it became part of Czechoslovakia, from which Stalin also took this territory and gave it to Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, this area used to be a part of Hungary, right? And ethnic Hungarians, hundreds of thousands of ethnic Hungarians still live in Transcarpathia, by the way. And Hungary has very tense relationships with the Kiev regime. Particularly, one of the main reasons is that these ethnic Hungarians being treated no any better or not much better than Russian speakers, by the way. So Hungary most likely will reclaim its territory, right? And the same can be said about Romania, that also after Second World War, and Hungary, by the way, let me be more specific, Hungary lost this Transcarpathia after First World War, right? But Romania lost significant parts of its territory after Second World War, and not just in favor of Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, but also in favor of Soviet Union in general, because Moldova, not just Ukraine received some territories, but Moldova was created, by the way. This republic did not really exist. This is also a creation of the Bolsheviks, as Ukraine is. And the entire territory of Moldova was taken from Romania. That's how messed up, by the way, history is in Europe, right? When it comes to relationships between the countries and borders and so on, right? So Western Ukraine, it's a different story, right? But rest of the Ukraine clearly has to be liberated by Russian forces. Otherwise, as I said, globalists will sacrifice literally everybody there to prolong this proxy war against Russia as much as they can. Let's continue with some more news, dear friends. And we have this report that Trump was asked, by the way, about recent attacks, long-range strikes that Russia is conducting on military and logistical infrastructure on Kiev-controlled territory. And let's listen what he has to say.
Strategic call with Zelensky the other day. What strategy did you decide? It was a good call. He's being hit very hard, as I said he would. He's being hit very hard, and I was very disappointed with my call with President Putin. I was very disappointed.
So Trump once again is highlighting that he is extremely disappointed with recent phone conversation with Russian President Putin. Okay, we get that. Maybe he is not used to hear no, right? You are wrong. I mean, maybe he's not used to be lectured on the matters, right? Important matters. But the Russian president is not a figure that Trump can mess around, really. No matter how diplomatic Russian president is, I mean, at one point he will say, you know what, let's be real here. And probably that's what happened during the conversation. And Trump is still under impression, by the way. How many days passed since that conversation? Like 4, 5, almost a whole week, right? He's still under impression and whining about that talk that did not go in a way that he was anticipating. But nevertheless, that's not really relevant at this point. Unfortunately, Trump continues to emphasize directly, sometimes indirectly emphasize that US is supporting Kiev regime and will continue to support, which is too bad, by the way, too bad. I think Trump's team still has opportunity, and Trump himself still have opportunity to pull out US from this proxy war that was provoked by the globalists, by the way. And even though US was leading this proxy war and still continues to do so, at least in some ways, well, previous administration, I mean, Biden's administration was also part of globalists, right? Globalist assets. And if Trump and his team are truly America first force, then why you are wasting time? Why you are deteriorating prospects of the US itself to maintain its position on a geopolitical scale? Why you are prolonging US's involvement in this proxy war? That's the main question I have, really, right? In addition, dear friends, Trump continued to speak on the matter. Let's listen to.
Say it.
Why not help Ukraine the same way you helped Israel?
I am helping Ukraine. I'm helping it a lot. And it's a war that should have never happened. It's a war that should have never started. If I were president, if the election weren't rigged, and it was rigged so badly, and that's come out. Read Miranda Devine in the New York Post today. The election was totally rigged. And if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have a war with Russia right now, and you wouldn't have had inflation, and you wouldn't have had the horrible Afghanistan, the way they left. Not that they left. We would have been out before them, but the way they left. I think the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. You wouldn't have had the October horror show with Israel and Hamas. You wouldn't have had any of it. You wouldn't have had the recent showdown with Iran. You wouldn't have had any of it. And you wouldn't have had inflation.
So you said you had a...
So, as I said, dear friends, he still continues to speculate on the matter of helping the regime. He quite often brags about delivering to the regime weapon systems during his first presidency, while he's criticizing Obama for not doing so. And this is quite confusing, isn't it? This is not something that America First people are expecting from him. And yet again, maybe some things will change, because even though Trump is quite, still under impression of recent conversation with the Russian president, for him, by the way, who talks quite. Who has this style of talking like he's some sort of a gangster. If you notice, he's never did not really crossing the lines, right? While addressing Russian president, he did it some time ago, and since then I changed my attitude towards him and his administration radically, because I don't forget and I don't forgive, right? That's my take in this life. But nevertheless, he definitely changed his tune, right? And that can be seen as an indicator that maybe America First forces truly are regaining initiative in the White House, right, in Washington. Let's hope so. If that is the case, then despite tough talk from Trump, probably there will be no additional weapons shipments, new weapon programs for additional weapon shipments to Kiev regime. Probably US will further distance itself from this conflict in upcoming weeks and months, and eventually there will be some ground for Russia-US relationships to began improving step by step, little by little, but to begin restoring what was destroyed during the previous administrations, and continues to be destroyed right now. Maybe speed is not there, but still, as long as US is engaged in this proxy war, it harms potential future relationships between the countries. But nevertheless, and also, dear friends, I want to highlight one moment. Journalist was asking Trump why US is not supporting Ukraine in a way it does supports Israel, and what kind of journalist was asking? Who was that journalist, by the way, that don't understand that Ukraine is a proxy of US, a proxy of the West, right? Collective West, and therefore US has a certain attitude towards Ukraine. Israel is a different story. In regards to Israel, it's probably US that is acting as a proxy, right? And so there is a massive difference, isn't it? How you can compare these two, man? I mean, I don't get it. But nevertheless, let's continue with some more news. And well, as I said yesterday, by the way, during the stream, there is no new date for another round of Russia-US dialogue yet, according to Maria Zakharova. Let me give you some details on that. A date for a new round of Russia-US talks has not yet been set, but their parties are in constant contact, including on the issue of eliminating mutual irritants. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated. And well, there were already 2 rounds of talks between Russian and US delegations. That was a good step from both sides. Third round was postponed because of the US. Washington did not want to conduct that third round of talks. Okay, but Maria Zakharova is saying that, well, talk is behind the closed doors, talks continue, right? It may not be public, but both sides are communicating. And if that is the case, then probably even without public negotiations, probably sides will manage to find some common ground to de-escalate between each other, right? So that's something of positive, I guess, because after all, even though there is no trust in Washington in general, for understandable reasons, when 2 major superpowers are in communication, are communicating, that is a good thing, right? For world safety, not just for safety of these 2 major superpowers, nuclear superpowers, but for rest of the world. But while US is sort of pause at this point in regards to Ukrainian crisis, seems like Washington is confused which way to go. Either go all the way with globalists and get engaged in this proxy war against Russia with full strength, or to be focused more on America, on this idea of America first. Clearly, there is some sort of confusion in Washington in this regards, it seems like. And therefore, well, there is a confusion also among countries of the coalition of the willing. Remember, UK and France, several months ago, created this coalition of willing, and they were making some strong statements. They're going to send troops to Ukraine. They're going to defeat Russia. They're going to do this and that. And they almost colonized entire galaxy, by the way. They were very ambitious, right? And did you hear anything from coalition of willing in last, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months, 5 weeks or 6 weeks or 7? No. Where this coalition disappeared, by the way? Without US, they are used to, by the way, globalists and globalist-controlled regimes in Europe, they are used to a situation when US does all the dirty work for them, right? For decades and decades and decades, that was the case. Globalists, through their assets inside US political class, Democrats first of all, but others too, globalists were managing to use US as their enforcer in this world. And now they are facing reality when Washington is refusing to play along, not to go along with this, let's say, tradition that was established in the West when Washington is just acting as a, and U.S. militaries are acting as a sort of private POW for the Brussels or for the globalists, right? London, Brussels, and confusion is growing in Europe. Confusion is growing in Europe, and the political Western media outlet is reporting that a coalition of those willing to help Ukraine is moving without direction. That's what confusion is, isn't it? The British-French project to create a so-called coalition to help Ukraine is moving without a clear direction, political reports citing sources. Part of the problem, according to French officials, that political spectre, is the lack of security guarantees from the United States, on which Britain has relied heavily. What a surprise, by the way. To allay such concerns, the newspaper notes London has scheduled a coalition meeting involving German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italian Prime Minister Meloni, and Vladimir Zelensky during... Oh, there is no screen capture. I will deal with it right now. Just a sec. So, okay, that's the news. Thank you. So where I was. So to allay such concerns, or to address such concerns, the newspaper notes London has a scheduled coalition meeting involving German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and Vladimir Zelensky during French President Macron's visit to Britain. Earlier, the Russian ambassador to United Kingdom, Andrei Kelin, told the TASS correspondent that their project had turned into yet another club of Kiev's friends, after which their excitement died down. The head of the Russian diplomatic mission drew attention to the fact that none of their coalition members, despite initial statements, had committed to conducting serious deployments of forces in Ukraine. It is obvious that this is not a coalition, but only a designation of their presence that has no military significance, Kelin added, and who will argue with this statement of Russian diplomat? It is absolutely correct, and I was saying the same, isn't it? Initially, leadership of this coalition feeling was very strong in the statements, right? They were defeating everybody and they're occupying everything possible, entire universe. But as time goes by, and it has become clear that, well, Washington is behaving under this administration differently. Well, confusion settled in the Europe because they are not used to this kind of situation. All they know, by the way, in Europe, let's say, is that US is acting as their enforcer, right? All over the world. And now it is not the case, and US is saying that, you know what, guys, I mean, let me think about it. US did not distance itself completely, isn't it? Not yet, at least. But all Washington did is, give me time. Let's pause the situation for now. Let me think. And that's enough. That's how fragile, by the way, this NATO organization really is. That's how fragile collective West really is. And ununited. That absence of commitment from the Washington to do whatever globalists will demand is enough to cause a huge internal friction in this so-called coalition, right? And by the way, without US, European NATO member states are not military power. Let's be real here, isn't it? They are not military power. Yes, France and UK do have nuclear weapons, and it is dangerous, right? And these countries should behave, because they are nuclear powers, they should behave a bit more responsibly, but that's a whole different story, isn't it? And at one point, I guess Moscow and Washington will have no option to address this topic and to basically denuclearize both these European states, France and UK, peacefully, by the way. Hopefully it will happen peacefully, but it has to happen because neither London, neither Paris can be trusted with nuclear weapons. It's just too obvious. Anyways, let's continue. This is good news, by the way. This is good news because we don't need no more escalations, isn't it? We need the de-escalation. And all globalists and their control regimes have to do, by the way, is acknowledge that they were wrong when they attacked Russia. They were wrong when they tried to conduct regime change in Russia, destroy Russian economy, destroy country, destroy society, destroy everything. They were wrong, right? They were wrong while provoking this proxy war against Russia. They have to acknowledge that they lost, right? They lost. And after that acknowledgement, they will have an off-ramp to change the policies. Otherwise, they will not be able to change anything, really. And eventually they will force Moscow to just teach them a lesson hard way. Teach them, I mean, to teach globalists, by the way, and their puppet regimes lesson hard way. And it's happening, by the way. It's happening. Anyways, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that, German media outlet Bild published a secret list of weapons that Kiev is demanding from Berlin, by the way. Not asking, demanding. That's quite interesting. So German newspaper Bild has published a list of weapons that Ukraine wants to receive from Germany. Secret list has surfaced. It is supposed to show the specific needs of Ukrainians. Kiev regime, let's say. A request for support amount to billions of euros, the publication said. According to their media outlet, the list includes air defense systems, protected vehicles, and electronic warfare systems. And there is some details, specifics on that. So Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky is demanding from Germany alone, by the way, 4 Iris-T air defense systems, launchers, by the way. Also 2,000 Iris-T missiles. 2,000 Iris-T missiles. Each missile costs about $1 million, isn't it? Significant number, by the way. And just this request is in hundreds of millions of euros, right? Probably billion euro or something. Also, Kiev regime demands from Germany 200,000 40-millimeter rounds. Also, 1,000 mine-protected vehicles. 1,000, by the way. Mine-protected vehicle, MRAPs, basically. 200 trucked vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, basically. 30 anti-mine rollers, 20 to 30 recent mine clearance vehicles, 200 SUVs, 1,000 electronic warfare system, 200 radars. Newspaper added that and I guess there is much more in weapons and ammunition that Kiev regime is demanding, but Bild published just some of it. So a newspaper added that since the creation of the coalition government, the German authorities have stopped publishing information about new deliveries of weapons to the Ukrainian armed forces. And this is true, by the way, and this was done by Berlin to somewhat hide possible transfer of Taurus long-range cruise missiles. But yet again, Moscow was very clear on that topic. If Germany will begin deploying these Taurus missiles, that will mean that Moscow will interpret that as Germany's direct involvement in this conflict, and some retaliatory measures will be taken. I mean, it is anybody's guess how Russia might retaliate, right? But these numbers, by the way, I mean, these numbers are quite impressive, isn't it? And Ukraine is demanding all this stuff for billions and billions of euros just from Germany. So basically, Zelensky wants Germany to give up on its own army and send everything to Kiev, right? Can you imagine what Zelensky's regime is demanding from other NATO member states? Clearly, this proxy war that West is waging against Russia is demilitarizing, decimating military capabilities of the NATO, by the way. That's what it is, you know. And also demoralizing, because when NATO soldiers that probably also need to have some better equipment, new maybe barracks or something, when they see that their countries are spending billions and billions and billions on fixing Zelensky's regime and their own armies are neglected, of course that will influence morale of their troops, isn't it? In NATO member states. It should. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends. And today is an important day for Ursula Bursula, washing machine. So vote of no confidence in the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen for corruption in their procurement of COVID-19 vaccines will be discussed today at the session of the European Parliament in Strasbourg. And well, she might receive vote of she might not secure confidence vote, by the way. There are such reports in media that there is such a possibility, although majority of experts, as far as I can tell, are quite convinced that probably she will maintain her position. And probably she will, yes, because she was appointed by globalists, right? And until globalists will say, I mean, your time is up, she probably will stay on her position of European Commissioner, right? But who knows? Who knows? Maybe some uncontrolled processes will take place, and Ursula Bursula will lose her job. Former defense minister of Germany, by the way, gynecologist, isn't it? I mean, top military expert in this world. Unbelievable, man. And she did ruin their almost completely Bundeswehr, and she's running European Union, by the way, together with other unelected officials there. But let's see. I will monitor the reports about this development, and who knows if she will secure confidence vote. Okay, show will continue. If she will not, then well, globalists will put someone else in her position, probably even worse one than Ursula is. To continue, dear friends, of course, we have to discuss situation in the Middle East, because media outlets worldwide, including here in Russia, pay a great deal of attention to this part of the world. And we have this report that Houthis or Ansar Allah movement in Yemen attacked Ben Gurion airport with a hypersonic missile. This happened yesterday, by the way. And according to reports, nighttime last night, there was also launches from Yemen in the direction of Israel. And even though these missiles were intercepted, I believe, well, these launches themselves, by the way, are causing multi-million-dollar harm to Israeli economy, because every time Houthis launch missiles or drones in the direction of airport or any other strategical facility, there is measures are introduced for safety reason. There is evacuations. Companies are shutting down their business. It's a chaos and all that kind of stuff. It causes millions and millions and millions in damages every time Houthis launch these missiles. Some people may not realizing how damaging these operations are actually for Israel that Houthis are conducting. Not just with these direct strikes on Israel with missiles and drones, but also with the attacks on vessels that are connected or linked with Israel directly or indirectly. Probably Israel already suffered their billions in losses, billions, by the way, in losses due to activity of Ansar Allah movement, and Israel retaliated, by the way, as it did many times before. yesterday night, Israel launched a relatively large-scale airstrikes on Yemen, and reports are about massive explosions in Hodeidah port in Yemen, in some other areas. Although I saw some reports from Houthi rebels on internet, and they are up in arms, and they have will to continue this struggle despite Israeli attacks. I guess Israel will conduct attacks on Houthis at least for several days, maybe even weeks now. I don't think it will work because the US tried, didn't work. Saudi Arabia, UAE, they tried it to bomb their Ansar Allah movement into the ground. It didn't work either, right? So I don't think Israel gonna succeed, by the way. I mean, Houthis are used to this type of warfare, right? Where enemy has air superiority, and they are well versed to deal with this, right? So therefore, I guess strikes on Israel will continue from Ansar Allah movement as long as Israel continues its genocidal, until Israel will continue genocide of Palestinian people. And in no circumstances Israel will succeed defeating Houthis. It's not happening. TASS news agency, meanwhile, is reporting that, as I already said, dear friends, Israeli leadership, unfortunately, continues genocide against Palestinian people. And just last night, as a result of Israeli strikes, 82 civilians were killed in Gaza. So over 80 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip in the past day. The Qatar-based Al Jazeera TV channel reported, according to the broadcaster, 82 people were killed in a Palestinian enclave. On July 6, a strike on the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood in Gaza City claimed lives of 39 people. According to Gaza Health Ministry, at least 304 people injured in Israeli attacks. Overall, by the way, deaths toll from the Israeli aggression has risen to 57,418 since October 7, 2023, while 136,260 people have suffered injuries, the ministry said, adding that there are at least 6,860 people had been killed and over 24,200 injured since March 18, 2025, and this is extremely conservative estimates, by the way. One should keep that in mind because I remind you, Lancet medical journal, Western, well-respected medical journal, reported that according to their estimations, as a result of Israeli actions, up to 200,000 civilians could be killed, by the way. Many of them under the rubble. You have seen pictures and videos from Gaza Strip. There is not a single building that was not destroyed in entire region, by the way. So no one really knows how many people actually died, but Lancet used a certain methodic that was proven correct during the other conflicts, and according to their estimations, up to 200,000 people could be killed, by the way, as a result of actions of Israel, as a result of direct strikes, or as a result of injuries, and so on. So it is a genocide, by the way, and at this point, I don't think anybody who really is objective doubts this. It's a genocide that Israel is committing against Palestinian people. Meanwhile, Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, is in Washington now. He left Israel to meet with the US President Donald Trump, probably with some other officials also. And the Vedomosti newspaper is reporting on that. Let's go through some details here. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has traveled to Washington to meet with US President Donald Trump. Jerusalem Post reported about it once Netanyahu left. The two leaders are set to meet on July 7, that is today. An Israeli official told the publication that Netanyahu will ask Trump to give their green light to take action against any Iranian activity related to the restoration of its nuclear program. The goal is to have a mandate similar to what we had there in Lebanon. This means that if suspicious activity is detected at the nuclear sites or if there is evidence of uranium being removed from areas hit by US and Israeli warplanes, the US will already have a prior authorization to take action. Source said it is specified that Israel has set itself their goal of creating a US-led mechanism that will prevent Iran from resuming its nuclear program. The Jewish state wants a mechanism of retaliatory sanctions to be applied to Tehran due to its refusal to cooperate with their International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Israeli asset, by the way, IAEA. Organization that is formally is a UN body, right? UN watchdog, but in reality was working for secret services of Israel, US, and UK, and it's absolutely disrespected worldwide, by the way. I don't think why would anybody have any respect for IAEA at this point after what they did. Until leadership of IAEA is removed and significant reforms conducted in this organization, it will never again trust of the public or the world, by the way, that's for sure. But when it comes to the topic of Iran, you can clearly see, dear friends, that Netanyahu, his regime, Zionists, and the globalists, by the way, they are still pushing for further wars, because you see how these sentences are constructed, by the way. It will be up to Israel to decide if Iran is working on enrichment of uranium or not. Who gives Israel any rights, by the way, to decide what Iran should do or should not, right? Or who gives the right to US or to European states to tell Iran what they can and cannot do, by the way? What the hell is going on here? But this is clearly, by the way, indicator that, as I said from the beginning, this current ceasefire between Israel and Iran is a temporary development. Unfortunately, I'm quite convinced that globalists and their allies in Israel, in US, will try to provoke a regional war in the Middle East. They might have different reasons for that, but they are on the same page when it comes to attacks on Iran, because that's how globalists, for example, want to provoke a regional war, right? To escalate, to provoke conflict, not just between Israel and Iran, but between Gulf states and Iran, right? Which will allow globalists then to use their assets to shut down in the region, to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait, which will harm world economy big time, obviously, because some 20-30% of global energy, oil and gas, is transferred through this waterway. But it will hurt China too, I mean, big time. And that's what focus is for the globalists, right? To harm China. And they don't care what price the rest of the world will pay, or the Western collective West, for that matter. They just don't care, right? They see China as a competitor that they are losing the competition against with, and they want to destroy China and the global South in general, by the way, and the emerging multipolar world, right? And that's how they think they will maintain dominance over this world. So unfortunately, in upcoming weeks, it is highly likely that we will see second stage of escalation in the Middle East in attempt of the collective West to provoke a regional war there. And there also reports are that topic of Gaza Strip, Palestine, will be discussed maybe during their Trump Netanyahu talks, most likely, because they have to. They would prefer not to talk about it, because Netanyahu and Trump are on the same page. They want and they said it openly. Basically, they want Palestinians to move out of the region, right? They want to force them that. But nevertheless, reports are coming in that if there will be any ceasefire reached between Israel and Hamas, US might provide some guarantees in this case. But yet again, who can trust either Israel or the US, by the way, at this point? I mean, US administration already proved that they are using negotiations as a tool of deception. They are using diplomacy as a tool of deception, right? So therefore, I don't know how anybody can take seriously or trust anything that comes out of Washington. So US leadership might say, we will give guarantees for this and that. Then they can say anything they want, by the way. Who would believe them? I don't know. And this absence of trust in the Western political class is definitely a big issue, isn't it? It's definitely a big issue for the rest of the world, because how should we operate in this situation when literally nobody from the collective West countries, none of the leaders of the collective West countries, by the way, can be trusted? When we know perfectly well, based on factual evidences, that Western so-called elites, globalists, neocons, they're puppets in governments of different countries. They are using diplomacy as a deception. So therefore, how should we operate, by the way? I mean, one should never close the door for diplomacy. Okay, I can understand that, but on the other hand, is there any point to have a talk with the modern representatives of the collective West when you just know you cannot trust them? I mean, what is the point in that, right? I don't know. It's unfortunately it is the Western ruling class, isn't it, that create this situation. It's not the rest of the world, but it's a Western collective West itself. It's elites that create the situation when they literally cannot be trusted ever, right? Unfortunately, they did it. Meanwhile, dear friends, Musk files documents to register America Party with the US Election Commission. So it's official, I guess, now. Elon Musk have filed their application to register political party America with the US Federal Election Commission. The corresponding document has been posted on their agency portal. According to application, the party will be called America Party, AMEP, in short, AMEP. The application was submitted on July 6th. It is currently listed as pending in their Federal Election Commission doctor of applications and petitions. And so most likely this party will be registered, most likely. But then again, the question is, what would they do? I mean, I'm quite sure Musk will attract significant number of well-known, by the way, well-known not just in US, but even worldwide, public figures, not just the politicians, but public figures in general, to join this party. He has financial instruments to do great advertising for the party and to attract many people, right? Support of the many people. But as I spoke about this matter in the previous updates, by the way, only question I have personally is Musk operating truly independently, or there is a hand of globalists behind his actions? That's a question I have, by the way. If he is operating alone, independently, then U.S. Deep state will deal with him very harshly, by the way. I have no doubts about it. They would not allow nobody to challenge the current system that is built in US, right? Corrupt system, by the way, system that is destroying the country itself and destroying the livelihoods of the millions of people inside the US. But nevertheless, this system benefits most influential forces, right? Military industrial complex, multinational corporations, deep state political class intelligence communities. They want this system to be in place, right? And they will destroy anybody that will try to challenge. So if Musk is independent, I mean, he better be careful, right? But if he is not independent, then I see only one force that would give him enough backing to ensure his security, and that force is the globalists, by the way. So if globalists are behind him, then I would not recommend to anybody to support his this movement now. If he is independent, if he is true to his statements, if he honest, then that's a whole different story, by the way. But I struggle to believe that he's operating alone, by the way. I mean, share your take, what you think about it, but I struggle to believe that he's operating independently. I just, I don't know. You know, and well, Trump is not happy with Musk, as we all know, dear friends, and he called him a train wreck while commenting about his political ambitions, about his attempt to create a party. Let's go through some details here. US President Donald Trump has lashed out at Elon Musk over his plan to launch a new political party, accusing him of promoting disruption and the chaos and undermining the stability of the American political system. I just spoke about political system, isn't it? That well, there are very serious groups that are benefiting, by the way, most powerful groups in US that are benefiting from this corrupt and dangerous system, dangerous for US citizens and for country also. But nevertheless, they are benefiting from it, and as long as this is the case, they will defend it, right? With all means. And I mean, if by chance Musk is operating independently, I mean, he better be careful, man, because he's up against probably one of the most influential and dangerous forces that have ever existed in this world, by the way, in history of humanity, right? So, and that is quite a challenge to overcome if he is independent. But if entire this Elon Musk project is a part of geopolitical game of the globalists, that's a whole different story then, you know. In a post on True Social late Sunday, Trump criticized Musk for what he described as erratic behavior in recent weeks, calling the tech tycoon a train wreck. He also predicted that Musk's proposal to form a third party, the America Party, would fail and only serve as a divider to divide waters. We have a quote from Trump here. I'm saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past few weeks. Trump wrote, past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third political party, despite the fact that they have never succeeded in the United States. The system seems not designed for them. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and the chaos. The president said, adding that the Democratic Party has already brought enough of that. Trump also defended his recently signed multi-trillion-dollar spending package, dubbed their One Big Beautiful Bill, which has drawn sharp criticism from the Musk. And yes, I mean, this row between Trump and Musk continues. But yet again, I mean, only fundamental question that I have on this matter is if is about Musk himself. I mean, is he operating independently, or is a project of the globalists? I mean, that's the only question I have, really. And I need some very strong arguments to believe that he is operating independently. I don't believe right now. I'm skeptical of that idea. So probably he is a project, by the way, and was a project all along, maybe. And that's how he became our richest human being on this planet. Maybe. Yet again, dear friends, it's just my personal takes on the situation. You might have different reading of the big picture, and well, in the comment section, in the chat, let's have exchange of opinions on that. And a few more news, dear friends, and I will end the news segment on that. RT is reporting that our annual BRICS summit gets underway in Brazil, as I was reporting earlier about it. The event is expected to attract some 4,000 people from 37 member nations, partner states, and international organizations. Well, obviously, there is a massive interest towards the BRICS worldwide. After all, BRICS Plus, by the way, represents a vast majority of humanity, right? And many leaders made their statements already during this summit, including Russian president. And let me give you some of the statements that Vladimir Putin made during this summit. He was participating via video link. So BRICS has already outstripped their Western-dominated group of 7 in terms of combined GDP, Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated, which is factual, by the way. Speaking via video link at the plenary session of the 17th annual BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro on Sunday, Putin said the BRICS member states not only account for a third of their Earth's land and almost half of the planet's population, but also 40 plus of the global economy, 40% of the global economy. And by the way, as I said, BRICS, yes, but BRICS plus, it's a vast majority of the planet, of the humanity, right? And as we all know, dear friends, there is dozens of countries, over 30 countries, I believe, that are queuing in right now to join the BRICS, right? BRICS combined GDP measured by their purchasing power parity already stands at $77 trillion. That's according to 2025 International Monetary Fund data. He added, noting that on this metric, BRICS considerably outstrips some other groups, including the Group of 7, G7. The Russian president cited the recent IMF data as indicating that the corresponding figure for the G7 is about 57 trillion. So, I mean, truly, BRICS is 77 trillion, G7 57 trillion. I mean, huge difference, isn't it? He also noted that BRICS member states are increasingly relying on their national currencies in interbloc trade, which is very important, obviously. According to the president, BRICS has deservedly established itself among the key centers of the global governance, with its global standing and influence rising by the year. Putin argued that the group represents their fundamental interest of the global majority, and I will agree with that. Putin hailed mutual respect as one of BRICS cornerstones, which helps bring together peoples of different cultures and religions and makes the group attractive to developing nations. According to the Russian president, the unipolar system of international relations, which has been serving the interests of the so-called golden billion, is faster unraveling, giving way to a multipolar global economic system, which is also true. Speaking during the St. Petersburg's International Economical Forum last month, Putin similarly claimed that the fading world order is deeply neocolonial in their nature. He also spoke of a major transformation taking shape in a global economy. And well, when it comes to BRICS, dear friends, my personal, and I guess many members of our community will agree, are on the same page with me. My expectation is that this organization will come up with the alternative financial and the banking system with alternative reserve currencies as soon as possible, and alternative payment systems, right, on a global scale. That's just absolutely necessary, isn't it? For all of humanity, by the way, right? Citizens, once BRICS will create this alternative financial and the banking system, alternative payment systems, alternative reserve currency, all of humanity will benefit, no matter where you live, in the east, in the west, in north, in south. Everybody would benefit because current dominant system is a Western system, isn't it? Western financial and banking system that is extremely weaponized and quite often used not just against the rest of the world, by the way, but also against the citizens and the businesses of the collective West itself. And we have quite a number of examples of that, isn't it? So therefore, I mean, for how long now in my updates, I'm focusing on this topic of alternative financial and the banking system, alternative reserve currency, alternative payment systems, and the BRICS member states are working in this direction, but unfortunately, speed is not there yet. Probably you will agree with me. It has to be done faster, by the way. I know it's so many countries, they all have their own views, and we have to deal with their situations with mutual respect, and we have to take into account positions and strategical interests of each other. But either we all lose, all countries should understand that either we will all lose and all of humanity will lose if we continue to discuss the topics forever, or all of us will win and all of humanity will win if we will finally come to those certain terms that, let's create this freaking alternative financial and the banking system, for God's sake. It's not that difficult, really, right? Let's just do it, man. It's too much talk, man. Too much talk. Maybe for next year, by the way, for next year's summit, we will have some optimistic news on this matter. Let's hope so. Nevertheless, by the way, collective West is attacking BRICS because they see it as a cornerstone of the emerging multipolar world, and rightfully so, by the way. BRICS, together with Shanghai Cooperation Organization and a number of other partner organizations that unite also many countries, together, obviously, together with them, BRICS is a cornerstone of the emerging multipolar world. That is true, but BRICS is not built to confront anyone, right? Or anybody. That's what makes it attractive. BRICS not about confronting, right? Nobody. BRICS about building something that will serve all, right? Be beneficial to all. And this is the right approach, right? But nevertheless, collective West is attacking, and Trump is among attackers. US president, he already threatened BRICS quite a number of times, and he's threatening BRICS partner states too now. And you guessed with what? That's right, with the tariffs, with the extra tariffs, by the way. So US President Donald Trump has threatened to impose an additional 10% tariffs on any country which allies itself with the BRICS, accusing their economic bloc of adopting anti-American policies. And well, good luck with that, Donald Trump. You can impose tariffs on anybody you want, but it would not. You will harm US itself. You will harm your own fellow citizens. So why would you want to do that if you really care? Right? Obviously, these threats from Washington not going to stop no country, by the way, from cooperation with the BRICS. And sometime in the future, Right now, this might sound as some fantasy, but sometime in the future, by the way, I mean, US itself might actually, if US will manage to reform itself, if US will manage to get rid of this corrupt system that they have right now, and will truly become a republic again, then US itself might join BRICS and benefit tremendously from being a part of this emerging multipolar world, as it should, by the way. Of course, US has to be part of this emerging multipolar world and play its a positive role, positive one, not the negative as it does for how many decades now, isn't it? But a positive role. And it can do it if somehow US will find the strength in it to reform itself, to get rid of this crazy, harmful system that they have in a country that is oriented on multinational corporations' interests, on interests of the small batch of influential peoples and the groups, and completely ignores interests of the public, interests of the citizens of US, right? Let's see. I mean, maybe sometime in the future, definitely not today, not tomorrow, not in upcoming years, but in a decade or two, who knows? Who knows? US actually might join BRICS. I mean, door is open, you know. And dear friends, I will end the news segment on that. Hopefully, you did find this episode informative and useful. Was there any super chat? Okay, there was no super chat, but there was a $5 donation on PayPal from Detlef. So thank you very much for a $5 donation, Detlef. And comment was thanks. Truly grateful for support. And dear friends, let's take like 10-15 minutes exchange opinions on some topics. Let's do short community chat. As always, I will scroll through comments, and whenever I notice capital Q or capital or sentences in the capital letters, I will react on it and will try to be as informative as I can in my response. And dear friends, what? There is a super chat right now on Rumble. Blorp, thank you very much for your super chat, $5 donation. And comment is from Blorp, coffee. Thank you very much. Truly grateful. And let's have a chat. I'm happy to see this communication between the members of community, by the way. That means we are active community, right? And it's great. Just do this commenting. There were at least 3 assassination attempts on Trump, we know. So please take this into consideration. The civil war in US started a long time ago. Thank you for sharing, just Duder. Yes, clearly Trump, by the way, and these groups that are focused more on America, they have powerful enemies, by the way, clearly, right? And most powerful of them are globalists, I will say, right? And globalists have powerful allies inside the US too. I mean, Democrats, and forces in a deep state intelligence community that are influenced by the Democrats. This is all tools that globalists might use and will use, right, to keep Washington in check. So I will, of course, you may consider there is a civil war in US already, but I will say there is a war, by the way, inside the Western ruling class, civil war inside the Western ruling class between the globalists that are based mainly and are focused on Europe, continental Europe and UK. I mean, let's keep it together, right? And there are America First groups, by the way, that are trying hard to reclaim their own country, right? Because US was run by globalists for far too long. And as I said, US was used as an enforcer, by the way, right? For many, many decades. And globalists will try anything to keep it that way, to keep it that way. Right now seems like they are losing, and not necessarily losing, but globalists first time are facing some opposition in US, right? And that makes them angry, that makes them confused, and we can see this confusion, right, in actions of their globalist controlled regimes, for example, in Europe. I mean, UK, France, Germany, others. So there is clearly civil war inside the Western ruling class. I mean, I can, in my opinion. Dear friends, as I said, there are capital Q or capital letters in will make it easier to me to spot either question or the comment that you want to highlight. I mean, live stream was, news segment was 1.5 hours, by the way, quite a long one, isn't it? Wow. I was thinking I will deal with the news segment in a shorter time. Nick Hale is commenting, Levan, do you realize saying Jewish state as well as being false is racist against Jews? I mean, they themselves saying Jewish state. That's how Israeli politicians call the Israel, right? And I always say Israel, by the way. If I talk about Israeli citizens, I never focus on their religion. I always say Israelis, right? I don't use a religion whenever I talk about developments in the Middle East. So I personally, if they want to be called a Jewish state, then what if they call themselves Jewish state? So, and if media is using this phrase, then what can I do about it? I don't see why it's necessarily racist. Maybe I don't understand something, but I just don't know, Nick. I have no issues with Jews, so that's what I know for sure. And in my family, we have, some Jewish roots. So that's why I'm avoiding to even mention religion, isn't it? In whenever there is information about Israel, because Israeli leadership, Israelis, whatever ideas they have, that's a whole one topic, right? And the Jewish community in general, that's a whole different story we are talking about, right? And Jews, our Jews, by the way, here in Russia, have nothing to do with whatever Netanyahu does. And French Jews have nothing to do with it. Japanese Jews have nothing to do with it. Jews in Australia, in South Africa, I don't know what they have to do with these actions of their Netanyahu, isn't it? So that's why I'm very clear on that. When I'm talking about Israel, I'm saying Israel. If I'm talking about society, there I'm saying Israelis, right? As I'm saying, I'm French people, Russian people. When I say Russians, I'm not talking about religion of Russians, right? In Russia, by the way, there is three fundamental religions, right? Traditional religions. It's Christianity, obviously. Vast majority of us are Orthodox Christians, although they're Catholics too, by the way, and Protestants. But vast majority of us are Orthodox Christians. Islam, by the way, Muslim religion Islam is a traditional religion for many regions here in Russia. And Buddhism, by the way, some people may not realize, but Buddhism is a traditional religion in quite a few Russian regions, in Kalmykia, for example. So when I say Russians, you don't mean any religion, isn't it? I don't mean no religion. I just say, Russians, I mean Russian citizens, right? So I have same attitude towards Israel. When I say Israeli, I say Israeli. I don't care what religion they have, by the way. It's none of my business, right? But I mean, maybe some people have such concern as you're pointing out right now. And I will keep that in mind. But yet again, when I'm quoting some news reporter, then I'm reading whatever is written there. I mean, if Israeli politicians said Israel is a Jewish state, then how should I quote him? I mean, but in any ways, obviously, I'm against any ethno-chauvinism, religion extremism, racism, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's obvious, of course. Sorry, dear friends, if I miss your question. I'm scrolling faster. And what I was thinking to ask her, if you come across short videos, I will make probably this from this live stream, I mean, new segment, I guess 2 short videos. And if you come across of those videos, please, and have time, please click that like button. And maybe you can leave some commentary that will help to reach wider audience. Nidish Kumar is asking, Levan, what do you think is the difference between Russian socialism and the Chinese socialism? Wow, that's just too complex question, Nidish. In China, they don't really have, I mean, it's a Communist Party rule, right? So formally they are socialists, but I think here in Russia, by the way, we have socialist system, which means that there is a public contract in place, right? And that we all pay taxes, and with our taxes, state will fund certain institutions, right? State will do certain thing for everybody, not just for one person or two, but for everybody, right? And the social contract means we all agree that we will pay taxes so that our elderly will receive pensions. We all agree that Medicare will pay taxes so that Medicare will be free. We will pay taxes so that government will be able to assist citizens in some specific episodes when they need assistance, right? So the government have such opportunity, state will have such opportunity, right? So in Russia, by the way, significant amount of tax money is spent actually on people, right? As a direct assistance. That's and also obviously all these infrastructure projects that government is involved together with the private sector, and many things is financed by government, right? And this is social contract. We have a socialist system in this regard. Same time, we have a free market economy, right? We have free market economy where businesses are competing, and I mean, government does have a say when it comes to big and very big business, right? As it should, by the way. I'm 100% supportive of that because take a look at the US, by the way. If government is losing control, right? And if big and super big business gains control over the government or the political processes, as it happened in US, eventually that will result into deterioration of their quality of life of the people, right? Because country will begin serving not the people but these small groups of interests, right? It's clearly visible on example of US and many European countries too, by the way. Although some of them in Europe especially are still managing to keep some balance, right? And they also have some elements of the socialist state in Europe, right? In many European states. But US is a wild in this regard, absolutely. When it comes to China, by the way, I mean, it also has a like free market economy, but same time, it's a one party government controls all the businesses, right? At least that's how I understand her. Big businesses, all of it, are under control. Government not just have a say, but they control it. Also, I don't know if this information is correct, but as far as I know, there is no such a thing as a state-funded pensioner system in China, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, friends from China, members of our community, please correct me on that. I just don't know about Chinese system much, really. I mean, so therefore, I can tell you how Russian system is socially oriented, right? But when it comes to China, they probably, if I remember correctly, I mean, they don't even have a pension system there, right? So how it is a socialist? It's a communist in some sense, but in case of China, what communism means, that's also separate question, right? Because they went on very different ways of interpreting communism, right? It's hardly communism, by the way, what is happening in China, right? So I don't know. This is a question that political scientists should speak about because it's a deep question, isn't it? I'm definitely not a political scientist, so you know, when I don't know something, I just don't know. I'm not gonna pretend that I know, you know. Svetlana Vladimirova is commenting, asking, what is your and fellow Georgians' attitude to Stalin? Do you think, as I do, that Stalin's death and Khrushchev's rule began the slow death of the USSR? I will not speak about Georgians. Georgian society is divided, by the way, on this topic, as society in Russia is divided on topic of Stalin. Many people, I mean, he is a historical figure no matter what. And dear friends, Svetlana is asking about attitude in Georgia because Stalin, his name is Yosef Joashvili, right? He is from Georgia, from Gori. There is a city in eastern Georgia, and he was from Gori, right? From Georgia. He was ethnic Ossetian, though. He was ethnically Georgian Ossetian, right? Because his surname in Georgian, it sounds Joashvili, but originally it's Jugati, right? Jugaev in Russian way. He was Ossetian, Georgian Ossetian, right? But that's nuances, by the way. So attitude is different. I mean, some people see him as a historical positive figure. Some people see him as a bloody dictator. And you will find that this divide in the public here too in Russia, and I guess all over the world, right? At least all over the former Soviet Union. When it comes to my personal take, he is a historical figure. During the Stalin's leadership, our grandfathers defeated Nazi Germany, right? Defeated fascists, by the way. So that alone is an achievement that probably tops everything else, right? And people were believing in him. I mean, I still remember, by the way, when I was speaking to my grandma, what kind of attitude she had towards the Stalin. I was trying to understand when I was a kid, by the way. I mean, in like 6th, 7th grade, I was trying to understand. The country was changing, isn't it? Soviet Union was collapsing, and new era began. And I still remember this extreme respect that my grandma had towards Stalin's figure, by the way, right? It was very impressive. And if I would say anything critical, I mean, if I will ask critical question, then she would not get angry at me, but she might cry. And when I see that, I never dare to ask any more critical questions. I would not, because I did not want to upset my grandma. She was a wonderful person, but that was the attitude, of that generation. My grandfather fought in a great patriotic war and was wounded, by the way, 5 times. I based on my memories and what I was told by relatives, he was wounded 3 times. And after that, during the Second World War, during the Great Patriotic War, there was a rule: if you are wounded 3 times, you survived, you are decommissioned. And recently, we learned from one of the books, by the way, where my grandfather was mentioned, that he was actually wounded 5 times, right? And he, despite these injuries, and one of the injuries, by the way, eventually killed him after the war, but one of the injuries eventually killed him. He was still fighting, right? And he was believing in the leadership too. I mean, one may say they were indoctrinated and was this and that. Okay, maybe, but they built the country. They not just defeated their worst ever enemy that humanity had, these fascists. They not just defeated them, but they built the country, right? So, and this was very much happening as a result of leadership of Stalin too, right? No one can say that Stalin has nothing to do with whatever success Soviet people had. He had to do everything. I mean, he was clearly connected with success too. So therefore, I mean, this is he's a historical figure. I don't have negative attitude towards him. especially negative attitude. I don't like Lenin, for example. I think Lenin was a traitor. I really think so. Lenin and the majority of the Bolsheviks were traitors, in my personal opinion, but Stalin was different. We know that he was studying in a как будет по-английски духовная семинария? He was studying in a church school, by the way, when he was young, right? So he had some. Anyways, I mean, he was studying in a church school. At some point, he became a gangster. I mean, many people may don't even know, but at some point, Stalin will become a gangster, and as a result of the criminal activity of the Stalin and his comrades, they were funding the Bolshevik movement in certain ways. They were not major funders, but they were actually raising some money, right? And somehow they managed to even gain popularity among the public, because public was, many people were not happy during their latest years of their empire, right? So therefore, I mean, you can say about Stalin whatever you want, that he had a criminal past, he did this and that, but I don't think he was a traitor. You cannot call him a traitor, though, right? He was not like Lenin, by the way. He did not travel all around Europe, and did not. He was not financed by Germany to travel from Switzerland to Russia to do this freaking revolution, right? So that's my take, And I think, as you mentioned, I think that's of Stalin, and he was killed, by the way, by Beria, probably, isn't it? By whomever, but probably he was poisoned. And his death, and then Khrushchev's leadership was a total disaster for the USSR. I'm on the same page with you on that. Absolutely. Khrushchev was the most despicable element that Communist Party could choose, I guess, to lead the country. But because he was a despicable individual, he went on top of the heads of others. He did what others refused, and he became a number one in the party, right? And one of the, he is a disgrace, by the way. He gave Crimea to Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Why, for God's sake? Why? Did they ever ask anybody in Crimea? They did not. So Bolsheviks, by the way, Lenins and the rest of their traitors, in my opinion, they created the Ukraine on Russian territory, right? They created it on Russian territory initially. Then, when Stalin was in charge after Second World War, that was a different era, by the way, and I don't think Stalin would ever think that the Soviet Union would break up, and there would be ever this civil war that we are observing right now inside the Russian world, when residents in Ukraine are fighting against Russia, which is crazy, right? I don't think he was thinking about such possibility, and that's why he took whatever territories he took from Poland or Czechoslovakia or Romania, he gave it to Ukraine, right? After all, Ukrainian SSR, Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, was bordering those areas. Although Stalin could give those territories to Russia and keep it as enclaves, as Kaliningrad is. Why he didn't do this, I don't know. But then Khrushchev came, by the way. And for no reasons whatsoever. Some are arguing that, well, there was easier to manage economy and this and that. No, it was a historical Russian land, by the way, that has immense importance for Russia. And Khrushchev, this bastard, sorry for my language, but этот урод, блин, взял и gifted Crimea to Ukraine. I mean, what the hell? So yes, I will agree with you that death of Stalin and the leadership of Khrushchev was a beginning of the slow death of the Soviet Union, for sure. Unfortunately, but yeah. So that's what I think, by the way. Stalin is a historical figure, and no matter who says what, generation of my grandfather and grandmother, they were living under their Stalin's leadership during that era, and they not just defeated their worst enemy humanity ever had, fascists, by the way, but they built a country that lasted, by the way, for many, many decades, right? And all this was done under leadership of Stalin. So he's in my personal opinion, he's a legendary historical figure, right? I may not be a big fan of him because I think he should be more careful with whom he was working. Beria, this criminal, should never be part of his inner circle, right? But yet again, it's easy to judge from this period, right, of history. At the time, probably he did not know better. But nevertheless, he led the country towards victory. He led the people towards victory, and he built the country, by the way, that lasted so long. All other leaders in the Communist Party, seems like they were actively trying to destroy country, right? All these corrupt criminals. But country still will stand, by the way, until 91, isn't it? Is that not amazing achievement of the people of Soviet Union and the leadership of that era? I don't know. I mean, historians might argue about it for me many, many times. Some might say, well, during the Stalin era, there was so many people sent in a gulag. Yes, that's true, by the way. My grandmother that I mentioned was arrested. You know, she was a teacher in a school, and you know what happened? Outside of town, there was a fields where some agricultural work was done, right? And when season was finished, when everything was this mechanized equipment went in, did whatever they want, collected, and they left, right? So until next season, this land is empty. And my grandma and some other people, this is I don't know, some 30-something year, I guess. She was young, and they went to talk potato or something for themselves, by the way, and she was arrested for that, right? She did not steal nothing. It was already finished, right? And she and several people, they went to take whatever workers left in the fields, right? They would not come back for it. It will just waste. And they took, I don't know, 1 kilo of this or 2 kilo of this, whatever it was, potato or garbage or God knows. I could not remember, by the way. Something of food, by the way. And she was arrested and then released, right? She was arrested because still it was a kind of illegal, right? And released. And despite that, she was not sent to Siberia or Gulag or whatever. I mean, she was released. And I had spoke to her about it. And despite this episode of her life, she was still, I mean, she had a very warm feelings towards Stalin, by the way, as a great leader of the country at the time. You know, that's the truth, by the way. You know, true that I know. So yes, and I can see arguments that, well, during the Stalin there was millions died in Gulag and all that kind of stuff. Well, first of all, there is a huge exaggeration of their number of deaths during their in work camps in Gulag and elsewhere. Millions didn't die. 100,000 probably didn't. That's also huge tragedy, by the way. And I know instances when people were arrested for no crimes at all. People were arrested because maybe some neighbor had some issues with them, and they were sending letters to law enforcement officers, isn't it? And talking some garbage or crap about these people. And for this, Donose, how should I say Donose? It's a Donose of so many many people were arrested, right? And eventually many of them probably lost their lives. Yet again, without documents, whenever you talk about some specific stuff, you need to have documents in front of you, right? But yes, some people, probably hundreds of thousands of people died in gulags, not the millions or tens of millions as Western propaganda is saying, and Solzhenitsyn unfortunately plays some role in that, and some other peoples, to push this narrative that tens of millions of Soviet people die in a gulag. It's not true, by the way. Hundreds of thousands died, yeah, but not all of them were innocent, by the way, right? There were some actual criminals that were caught and sent to prison. Anyways, it's a very difficult topic, isn't it? But on your question, yes, I'm on the same page with you that deaths of Stalin and the leadership of Khrushchev and everything that happened after was definitely slow death to Soviet Union. It's more than 2 hours, dear friends, now. Nidish Kumar is asking Levan, then what about having 57 Islamic states? Is that not fascism as well? You mean about Israel being a Jewish state? Yes, I mean, I'm not a big fan of these theocracies, by the way. I mean, I think it is better way, more optimal way to go secular, right? And religion to play a huge role, I mean, as it does. But religion should not be engaged in politics, in my personal opinion. I'm not saying which country should live which way, none of my business. But I mean, yet again, if some countries want to be focused on religion, and if some societies, let's say, I mean, choose that way of the living in Iran or in Saudi Arabia or in Afghanistan or in any other country, if they want to be focused on religion more, and if they want religion to play part in politics, okay. I mean, it's their decision, right? It's none of my business. I have no any opinion on that. I just don't care, man, right? So therefore, if Jewish leadership or Israeli leadership wants Israel to be called Jewish state, okay. I mean, if they want to be called Jewish state, then okay. I mean, yet again, I never focused on religions, by the way. So therefore, I don't have strong opinions on that. If you ask me, who am I can tell you that I'm Orthodox Christian. And I've been baptized as Orthodox Christian, and I will die as Orthodox Christian. That's all I can say about religion, right? What other people believe in is none of my business whatsoever, and how they want, or what kind of role they want religion to play in their lives. So it's a too sensitive subject, isn't it? Religion. So it's better to stay away. Just be focused on yourself. You believe in this and believe in this, right? All the religions, by the way, teach some kindness and positivity, right? None of the main religions teach to be freaking bloodthirsty animal. All the religions, as far as I can tell, and I'm not a theologist, by the way, but as far as I can tell, all the main religions teach to be kind, good human being, and I agree with that. That's what we should do and try always, right? To be good human beings. And not just because that's what religion says to us, but because that's the just right way to go. We should constantly try to be better. I mean, it's just that simple. But when there is too much focus on religion, I try to stay away from that. And I just, you know. Arkan Athletic is asking, Levan, could you speak quickly on the current situation in Azerbaijan and Armenia? Well, when it comes to Azerbaijan, by the way, you know, there is a escalation right now between Azerbaijan and Russia because what was just ordinary investigation of Russian law enforcement agencies in one of the Russian cities, Baku, Azerbaijan leadership, and Baku is the capital there, of course. They transform into state-level confrontation with Russia, and Moscow was Moscow probably did not expect that, did not wanted this to happen, and still don't want to escalate with Baku, and therefore, from Russia, all statements that I see, by the way, in media are very, very diplomatic, let's say this way, right? But Azerbaijan escalated for a reason, right? And I think London is the main reason. London is escalating with Moscow, and they are using Azerbaijan for that. And also, London is afraid that it might lose after globalists kind of lost in with Iran in Middle East, by the way, and that's what happened. They wanted to provoke regional war, and they failed, at least for now. And after this failure, London and British aristocracy and the royal family and so-called political elites in the UK that are controlled by this British aristocracy. I mean, these are driving force in the globalists, right? Among globalists. London is a driving force, by the way, together with some other more or less influential capitals in Europe. And they are afraid that they're going to lose, by the way, now position significantly in the Middle East and in different parts of the world, including Southern Caucasus, right? Forward Asia, let's call it. And that's why I think London chose to go on offensive. They use their influence in Turkey, also in Azerbaijan, to escalate with Russia. London simultaneously is trying to destabilize situation in Central Asia on a regular basis, actually. And well, I think London now will face not just Russian response, and but also because we sense, or everybody sense, weakness of the globalists and weakness of the London. Paris, by the way, is on offensive now, right? Too. And probably we will see some significant changes in Azerbaijan in relatively short time, and there will be regime change there. One way or another, how it will happen, I don't know, but France definitely is on offensive against UK, by the way. In this particular case, they want to push aside British influence in the Southern Caucasus region, and by dealing with current regime in Azerbaijan, which is extremely anti-Iranian, by the way, because it's a proxy of Turkey and Israel. By doing so, France, I guess, wants to gain preferences in Iran because they know it's only a matter of time. And if globalists fail to provoke regional war in the Middle East, then US eventually will begin doing business with Iran, right? And that means there are some sanctions to be lifted, and that means US energy companies will went in, and that means French energy companies will also have opportunity to go back in Iran, to play a bigger role, not just in Southern Caucasus region, in Azerbaijan, let's say, which is rich with their oil and gas, but also in Iran, right? By doing this favor to Iranians, that they will deal with their Aliyev's regime, right? So that's big gameplay is happening, by the way. And this is just a small part of overall big picture, right? But that's what is happening, in my personal opinion. So therefore, I don't expect any de-escalation between Baku and Moscow anytime soon. I think Aliyev crossed the red line, maybe unwillingly, maybe he didn't understood that London was sacrificing him in its geopolitical game. But it's just too late now. Aliyev crossed the red line, after which there is no turning back, by the way. He crossed the point of no return. So France will deal with it for sure. And that's why President Macron called Putin, by the way, Russian president, last week, to ask for a green light to take action in Southern Caucasus in regards to Aliyev regime, because French elites probably see this opportunity, right? That they can actually get green light from Moscow, and they can clearly attack weakened London's positions in that part of the world, in Southern Caucasus, and also by doing so gain some preferences in the future in regards to Iran. And I remind you, dear friends, many people may don't know, but Iran's nuclear program was started, by which country? By France. Right now, it's Russia that is building nuclear power plant there, but Iran's nuclear program originally was started by cooperation between Tehran and Paris. So France has a long history of operating in Iran, including in energy sector, right? When it comes to Armenia, by the way, Armenia is in deep trouble, by the way, because Pashinyan is repeating all the mistakes. Pashinyan and his regime, in the very same way as a Western-controlled or US-controlled Saakashvili's regime was doing in Georgia, repeats all the mistakes that was made by leadership of Georgia after color revolution of 2003, right? And now Pashinyan regime is attacking church in Armenia, as it was done in Georgia, by the way, by Saakashvili's regime, and the outcome will be the same in both republics. In Georgia, regime failed to harm church, and the regime will fail in Armenia too, because in both countries, in both former Soviet republics, church is an unchallenged authority, right? When it comes to respect and trust, by the way, there is no institution that comes close to the church, right? In either republics. That's how it is. So Armenia is on a crossroads, I will say. Armenia is on a crossroads, and hopefully Armenian people will manage to come out from that dark place with minimal losses, let's say this way. It's not going to be easy, but let's hope they will manage to do it with their minimal losses. And dear friends, update is quite long, isn't it? I have to end it now. So thank you very much for your attention, dear friends, for your support. If you can, please click that like button. If you didn't yet, click like button under this video. And if you come across some short videos that I might publish from this live stream later on, please pay some attention to it too, if you have time for that. Anyways, thank you very much for your time, for your attention. Truly grateful. Have a wonderful day and take care.